Hello everyone, welcome to Advanced. What is being unreasonable? And reasonable. Reasonable has a place in our life, and it's neither good nor bad, but consider the possibility that being reasonable has its purpose. If we want things more or less the same as what it is, then that's reasonable and we can keep it that way. And consider the possibility that if you want to break through from where you are right now, then being reasonable doesn't get there. So if you want to break through, we get to choose to be unreasonable. Now, to further understand this, let's think of a person, true person, who was unreasonable. Okay, the true story is she's a she, female, and from childhood to when she became adult, her dream was to contribute to the world, work something that she studied on for so many years, 7 years in elementary, 4 years in high school, 11, and then 5 years in college. That's 16 years of studying. And she gave it her all. She studied, she learned, and she started a job that she was proud of. And that's reasonable because she wanted that. And then she decided, I want to be unreasonable. How unreasonable was she? Well, she put her life on the line. She literally put one foot, one of her 2 feet on the grave, and she could have died. For so many months, she was that way. She felt awful. Her body was crazy, hormonal feelings she never experienced. But she was unreasonable. Unreasonable to the point that after 9 months, there was a breakthrough that wasn't going to happen without her being unreasonable. She gave birth. And that unreasonable person, the she that I meant, was her mother. If she remained reasonable and she knew that there's so much pain and suffering for the 9 months that she carried each one of us in her womb with the possibility of dying. If she decided to be reasonable, none of us would be here. But no, she was unreasonable. She went through that 9 months, and not just 9 months, it's the recovery after. It's the taking care of us until we grew. Many of our mothers literally gave up their careers, what they studied, their time, their energy to raise up. They were unreasonable. Can you imagine that? If mothers were reasonable, they wouldn't be mothers. They wouldn't put their lives on the line. They wouldn't do this for somebody who they will not be sure will love them back. So the reasonable thing was not to have a child, and that would have been fine, but not for us. We are lucky that our mothers were unreasonable. So, what ways of being do you think result from being reasonable? What ways of being? Okay, safe, cautious. What else? What's coming up for you? If our mothers were reasonable, what ways of being would they have exhibited before they even attempted to give birth? Cautious, careful, More of the same, status quo. Those are ways of being. Afraid? Well, again, nothing wrong with being reasonable because it keeps where we are. And then go to the point, they became unreasonable. Even if they knew from experience, from seeing their own mothers and other peers, that giving birth would wreck their bodies, would affect their careers. Some mothers never get back the bodies they had before they gave birth. And that's a fact. Majority find it so hard to get back to where they were physically and emotionally. But they were unreasonable. So what are the ways of being when we are unreasonable? Bold, yes. Anything else? Fearless, loving. What else comes to you? Okay, so let's write it on the board. Let's see. This is reasonable, more of the same, status quo, and that's okay. But if we want to break through, like us, we literally broke through the wombs of our mothers, then somebody has to say, I choose to be unreasonable. And these are the ways of being when we choose to be unreasonable. Now, do you know what reasonable and unreasonable is? Great, great. That's important to distinguish the two. Now, there will be occasions or moments in our lives when we will decide to disappear from reasonable and reappear unreasonable. So from more of the same and being reasonable, and that's great. But if we want to break through, you want to reappear unreasonable. There are 7 things that will help us to achieve being unreasonable. And the first of this is authentically live. So live in authenticity and face up to our mortality. Authenticity is who we are being is the same as and consistent with who we say we are. So when we live authentically, we are being who we say we are. And in our example, a mother is being the mother, not just by words, but in actions and ways of being. Where does mortality come in? What do you think of when we say mortality? Mortality is death. And this first pillar of reappearing unreasonable tells us that we don't live forever. Mortality or death is a gift, and it's a reminder that we don't have all the time in the world. We will die and we don't know when. And once we act knowing that we will not always have time, we will act authentically. Otherwise, death will happen and we're inauthentic. So it's no surprise that many people who have near-death experiences, who have been given the gift of a second life, live it with a different context, with a different perspective, because they were jolted to the fact that, hey, nobody's immortal. So the first pillar of being unreasonable, of reappearing unreasonable, is authentically live and face up to our mortality. This is life. This is not a dress rehearsal. There is a cost to following the herd. If we follow them and we lose sense of who we are, we lose our purpose. That's the first pillar. Authentically live and face up to our mortality. The second pillar, from disappearing from reasonable and reappearing unreasonable, what's the second pillar? It's committing to an extraordinary life. There's no separation between us and our vision. There is no there's no such thing as 99% married. It's either you're married or you're not. And it takes extraordinary commitment to being 100% extraordinary, not the average. We can choose to be, and a lot of people choose to be average, and we still have that possibility that we can choose to end up on purpose instead of ending up somewhere. So a commitment to an extraordinary life is a pillar to being unreasonable. The third pillar is to empty the past. Start with nothing, empty the canvas. Because many of the things that happen or that prevent us from going forward are our past baggages, which stop us from moving forward. Imagine, and I know everybody has gone on a trip. Where's the farthest trip you've gone to? LA, Boracay, Europe. Imagine when you go on a trip and you bring 14 luggages. How far can you go? You can't go. Yeah, you can, but you move very slow. And that's what the past brings to us. If you keep on carrying all those good and bad memories, which have happened, but they have no influence to what happens in our future if we empty out the past. Blank the canvas, start from anew, and create. That's emptying the canvas. In the Bible, the Lord said to the missionaries, don't take anything with you, because their work would have been affected if they carried bags or their attachments or their families to their mission to spread word. So empty the past. The next pillar is to be master enrollers. Create win-win with everyone. Because in a world where everyone wins, people come in, move, touch, and inspired, creating a cascade effect. So it's when there's a win-win, people are just so happy to join us. And it's not a win-lose. They don't lose by joining us because our vision, our noble cause, excites them. It's aligned with what they really want. So be master enrollers. The next pillar, the fifth pillar, is to stand as cause of the matter. You are the creator and author of everything that happens. Yes, there are circumstances, and to many people, they become victims to these circumstances. But standing as cause of the matter says, it's okay. I author my future. I create it from nothing. And while the circumstances are there, they don't dictate whether what I choose to do or not do. They're there. But I stand as cause of the matter, and I'm responsible for whatever outcome. There's no blaming, there's no excuse, there's no yeah buts. I'm the source of everything that happens. Imagine how powerful that is. The sixth pillar is integrity, honoring our word. When we say it, it is done. No separation. That is the starting point that brings us to breakthroughs. Everything starts in language. And if we develop that integrity muscle of honoring our word, then it's as easy and as quick and as powerful as declaring something with our word. And we know it will happen when we have integrity. Finally, the seventh pillar to reappearing unreasonable is using results as information. When we are who whatever way of being that we have, whatever way of being we choose to be and act, there will be results. And the results are neither good nor bad. There's just information for us to realize whether we are being authentic and being consistent with who we present we are. If there's a disconnect, then the information of the results will allow us to correct. So results are information, they're just what happened, and we get to choose not to put stories and all those meanings to the results. Just the results as information. So there's 7 pillars. The first is authentically live and face up to mortality. Second is a commitment to extraordinary. Empty the past. Be master enrollers. Be in integrity and honor your word. Stand as source and use results as information. And if we are able to do this, then perhaps our mothers did the right thing when they were unreasonable, when they put their life on the line and risked everything all their life. And it was not wasted, because when they were unreasonable, they also produced unreasonable people like you and me. We love our mothers, we honor them. They could have been reasonable, but they weren't, and thank you. Thank you, Mom. I know you're up there and you're listening. Thank you for your sacrifices. And I commit that before my life is finally returned to the Lord, the extraordinary results that come from emptying the past, honoring my word, and being sourced in everything that happens would make a difference, positive difference, an unreasonable difference that your grandchildren, Mom, will take to the next generation. Thank you.